And how on earth to cut you on? Shuku achtu asagu. Iach sakai kachanach ganal cheese. Ye jini. Kestasa ayach kugeha yukatangi. Kestasa awaha yukatangi itik aya yikakwati. Ye awa achin hasakawanik. Hastu itik akidich hasati. Ya halil kohas. Ka hadajhan kisani hastu kage yesaya lingitaya yi udutletu. Yewa achtu yake ya yaki. Wasa wukaya yi jini hayukatangidat. Yewa wanani sawe jatkashatina khaoti. Wedlet kha yukatangi jatlingitaya. Gachisuku dasawe adadu adutla atk. Kadasa yitawasagu. Ka inaya kayinigi. Helwasa kakwati. Wan kanins adati tukhwatan. Wasa hak kwati. Yaltakatuhan adusa. Wasagu hayukatangi aya kenaltsini. Eka. Aka awe. Ya hastat aya yutakhwatang. Ya hanak wugudi a. Wan kanins achtuwu. Ushatish kunachaya. Tatgeko akwasatin. Ya gwalchin kat kadachnach kaku owa. Hayukatangi hasakawa ak. Shkalnik aya hasautliyech. Gushuk jin kat winnets. Yatek ka ashuk anach aya. Kallatina khawuti. Yadlil hayukatangi just lingit kinach kakunachuke. Ya yagitsu. Heyday. Has shuwatan aya has tichahati. Wishingit yukatangi kuti yag. Yakdat aya dertag kanachaya ye has jiwane. Has the yukatangi dat has the yetki in. Yak oe chasatin. Ya ha yetki in aya ye has jiwane and we ak eiku atlatu. Has ya hashkun yi ayi. Yidatawe wutusaku. We de aya akachaya. Chuaya we de kach awe konach awe. Yakai chut. We tesha tuashku chasha kaye ti a. Ya yan has ausene. Ach yan tu ad ye at we konach. Yak awe ye jene. The katwit lingit ku atletuku. Yak echawe Johan. Yak wasa yi yadlak. Yidataya. Hayukatangi. Llingid reinach yuch alla adrich yw sati. Qaach tu yuk eadad. Gwell cech anach. Celgadein aya wujin yejagach tu ne a qoa yuk a. Has in yejagach ne. Yag gwell qa yak. Na wea. Na gellan. Yewe ach tuasagu has de chanti a yitsa yi a ditsa. Ya llingid reinach yuch alla adgi. We yende shani a qanach has de tuasagu. Jakut qawko in a way you has qawle adgi. Yak echa gunl cheesh. Yewe kugeach yuchatangi yachana. Okay. What did I say? Some stuff, this and that. Anybody want to help us walk through the recap? Help me remember.
I think the advanced class talked for 90 minutes.
Yeah, they talked for 90 minutes. They each told one story, and it took the whole class. And there was hardly any English at all. It was really exciting. Um, Sometimes I get pretty depressed. I'm just like, I don't think we're gonna make it. But then some things will show their faces. Like last night was a really good class, and then the Yakutat is finishing their second year of their language nest, and the language nest here in Juneau officially opened their doors today. So it was just really wonderful to drop my kids off and just watch them for a while and just admire what's going on. So that makes me feel good. It makes me think, yeah, okay, this is, and then, just thinking about all the teachers that are currently working in schools and that have been working in schools, and just being thankful for, it's like they're in there just clearing the path. We just got to keep that path clear. And they say, Yan has ausene achyan tu ad. They already made that path for us, our ancestors, and so we just got to find it. And so sometimes I think we have, at least I will overthink things, but then it's just like, you just find that path and it really helps. Let's see. I'm really.
And you said that instead of talking about our finals, you were going to take us all out for ice cream.
Oh, there's. All right. Frozen drinks?
Yeah, either one. In another class, a guy was walking in with a keg.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jeez, outclassed again.
I didn't know they could do that here.
Yeah, we have brownies.
Oh, yeah.
And chocolate.
Yeah, and chocolate.
Hooray.
We have fun.
This is the kind of the lowest pressure final that I've had. And so the idea here is we're just going to share some ideas and then we'll actually just be done. We might look at the Cyril George story and, I think we walked through that whole thing, didn't we?
Yeah, you did.
So yeah, I think we'll just sort of, we'll probably just share and then just call it because we did a lot of stuff. But if you guys have questions, I can certainly try to answer them. And then, I really hope that this helps you develop a plan for the summer and beyond, because it's really easy to take a little bit of time off, and then that becomes lots of time off, and then all of a sudden you can't talk anymore. So Tlingit, until we get it to a place of strength and safety, you really have to manufacture those environments. So I told the advanced students about your guys' use of the meeting room, and I encourage you to keep doing that. I'll send a big email out to the group to say I'm open to ideas on scheduling activities. We played a really fun game this weekend. I was hanging out with a lot of comic book artists, and we would play this game where everybody, it's called Telestrations. I don't know if anybody's ever played it, but this would be so fun and hard in Tlingit. So somebody writes a phrase, a sentence, a word on a note card. And you would count out one note card for every person like in here. And you make a little book and you number it, number your pages. And then I would hand it to Hoots Uhu, and he would look at what I wrote and he would put that card to the back and then draw it.
Draw it?
Draw it.
Oh, gosh.
And hand it to Satuk, who would look at it and then try to write what the phrase or sentence is, and so on. And you pass it along. It was really fun because we had lots of cartoon drawers who were amazing, comic book artists, and then we had lots of people who can't draw, and then you had people that were just. It was just very fun. We did that a bunch. I think it'd be fun to try and Tlingit. Right? So anyways, anybody got anything you want to share before we move into sharing our things?
The Zoom group everyone is welcome is meeting next Tuesday at 5:30 on Zoom. And everyone is welcome.
Wonderful.
You already have Tuesdays at 5:30 open on your calendar, hopefully.
That's true.
And I think our afternoon one was hard for people who are working during the day.
Okay.
So, I mean, at the very least, show up if you can, and we are open to moving it to a better time for
Is it
everybody.
for 1 hour?
Yeah, it's for whatever we want.
Well,
You know, let's make it work for us. So yeah, let's just say an hour.
Yeah, it's a great
And
idea
then we'll
because
talk about what we can do and what our plans are. Maybe some people, I was thinking maybe some people could be responsible for, signing up for a week saying, okay, we're gonna talk about this story and sharing it ahead of time or something like that, or, whatever.
okay.
No, we don't have to do that. But it would be good if we spoke Tlingit, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Fabulous. Okay. Let's share your ideas. I just want to hear them. This will be fun. Sugar alcohol.
Can I go?
Ah,
I have been thinking about this, and Yana 8, first semester, Kasana and I drove out here together for every class. Second semester, Yana 8 and I drove out here. And especially second semester, we say the same things. What a beautiful day. Or, man, this is stormy weather. Look at the eagles on top of the posts. Yay, we got a good parking spot. So I've been writing down the words that we say, and I'm going to work on them in Tlingit. And then whoever I ride with next year, we can be saying those things together. And instead of all of the, this two-page list I have, I'll start with maybe 10, and then we'll try to get used to using those 10 without any English, and then add another 10 and another 10. And the domain then is driving in the car from downtown to campus, and the people it will impact mostly is the 2 people or 3 or 4 people in the car who are riding at that time. And the goal, and I was riding with some other non-Tlingit learner friends the other day, and I started talking about the fresh snow in the mountains, and I was using Tlingit, and I thought, there's no reason why I can't be using the phrases with Tlingit speakers, with non-Tlingit speakers. They can ignore me, or they can ask about them. And so it can be, it's a small enough task. I'm not changing the world, but it's something that I think that I could do, and I could practice and continue.
okay.
And I don't remember all of the things there, so the goals and the domain and all of that.
Anybody got any thoughts on that or responses?
I'll give you a ride.
Cruising language.
Oh, the other one is the tide is up, the tide is out, because I say that every single time.
Yeah.
Look how high the tide is.
Right.
Looks like you could walk across the channel. So
What are your potential barriers to this plan?
forgetting, lapsing into English because it's easier.
How might you mitigate that barrier?
I should practice before I get in the car. And what I should do is keep my list small enough that I can do it, and then I know I can say them. So what if I keep saying the tide is high, the tide is high? And then when I get real used to that, then
The tide can go up.
then the tide can go down. Yeah, the moon is lovely, So Shachlagay is usually pretty, but it seems to refer to people. So how about the moon?
could say Tlingit or Tlingit. Tlingit.
Sligay.
Tlingit with a K on the front. Yeah.
You spelled that
Cheese.
twice.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to check myself. It should be KLI underline GEI.
Okay.
Tlingit. It's in there as fancy.
Okay. No high tones?
Yeah, it should be high tone. I guess
I mean, high tone, yeah.
let's do Tlingit. Sorry. KALI.
Okay, I was thinking, God, I've never seen a KO.
It could be there.
KAL.
That should be if the word before it ends with a vowel.
With cheese,
Kashige for fancy.
Yeah.
there's no N there.
I don't think so, Kashleke.
I don't have an N. It's just my handwriting.
Oh, I see.
This is a fancy table.
That's a fancy mountain.
I like it. Okay, yeah, and so some of the things we could think about too with an activity like this is like what is the potential rewards? What are the ways that we can sort of promote this and then try and encourage other people to do this, right? And then also to sort of figure out how can we give people tools to also do this, so that once we figure it out, especially so, that's how I think of this stuff working is you get this idea and then you start trying it out with some folks, and then when you think you got a pretty good toolbox put together, then you really just start, and you don't have to wait till it's totally ready. But once you feel like you've got enough stuff to share, then you just sort of push it out into the community. And then other folks might say, "Oh, this is wonderful." The next thing I want to add to that is giving directions, so I could tell you where to drive, which is how we had to drive in Hawaii, because they would only tell us directions in Hawaiian. So, but that would be another step, another component. This would just be, we're driving to this place that we know where to go, and we're going to encounter these same things. And you could look at a few really prominent kind of place names, maybe. Achsatanjin is what they call Thunder Mountain. Sha Tlach is, when you're coming from downtown, you're going to see Yada Atkashe, Sha Tlach, Katlach, Katlach Jini, Titlini. Sitka is the Gastineau Channel. Katlach Jini is that sort of ridge that comes out by the Salmon Bake and over by, there's Search and that Salmon Bake and the VTRC. That ridge right there is called Katlach Jini. Yeah, Sayek is over on that side, so wonderful.
And it's cheese, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and then Tlingit is like bright or shiny. Tlingit has a pretty face. Oops, wrong one. Tlingit is fancy or beautiful, or in the other context, it could be like you might be trying too hard, but yeah, I think it works. Qaisa'an is a beautiful land. That's the name for Kasan. Okay, you okay? Who's next? Okay.
So, um, The domain would be Central Council Tlingit and Haida operated coffee shops during certain designated periods of time. And for a certain period of time on certain days of the week or month, the customers and coffee shop employees will use the Tlingit language to place and fill orders. And then hopefully the customers would stay and converse in Tlingit. And this will provide visibility of the language, educate the general population that it is in current use, and it will provide language learners a venue for practicing and staying in the language. And customers will have to learn the phrases for ordering their beverages, and the employees will have to learn how to greet and communicate their sales pitch in Tlingit. And the language would be promoted every time someone uses social media to eat at the coffee shop or to advertise the event. And the kind of language would be like Tlingit greetings and departures, commands, compliments, the weather, and the value of Tlingit would be increased because we'd be letting people know that the language is alive, in use, and here to stay. And the potential barriers, or the employer might not be supportive, but I don't think that would be the case. The employees may not be willing to participate in it, but to mitigate this, the tribal president could make known their support. There could be assistance at the kickoff, teaching customers how to order beverages and employees how to interact with the customers, and there could be a list of common phrases provided. And if the plan is achieved, we know this because the coffee sales would be up during this time period. And you would know if the plan is working or not when you had repeat customers in subsequent events.
Okay, good Thoughts, responses?
There's now 3 coffee shops.
Yeah, right? Kecha. Yeah, there was the one upstairs here, and I had a student who was working there, so I would always order my coffee in Tlingit. And so, yeah, fantastic. And you could sort of do some incentive things like 20% off if you can do your whole order in Tlingit. And if your barista does the whole thing in Tlingit, give him a tip. Give him a better tip. Okay.
This is eerily similar to my idea and a certain other person that I know of. So we can help you.
Well,
Yeah.
if you have a similar idea, it might be a nice time to share it.
Okay. Mine was Sacred Grounds Coffee Shop, which is one of Tlingit and Haida's.
It's remarkably similar.
It's remarkable. It's written down. I did it ahead of time. And I also could indigenize or carry the same idea over to Copa, which is a neighborhood coffee shop near the Federal Building. And I think that Mark Wheeler, the owner, is very supportive of Tlingit culture and language, and would not. I think he'd be very supportive. So kahwe dakahiri ka astechnagu. Part of what I think could happen is right now at Sacred Grounds they already have checkerboards on their tables, and they have a little sign saying "Ask us for our checkers." So it would be fun to find some Tlingit vocabulary to go with the checkers game. And then also, I think we could have real astechnagu cards available at the shop for people to borrow with their phrases they could learn. They would have some support to be able to learn the phrases. And I bet they could sell a bunch of these if they're not already selling them
Right.
there. You know, because I think the more people that try it, and their kids would be trying it too, you know, it would be like, oh yeah, we need one of these for the house, you know? Um, so the goal would be to get the public comfortable with trying simple phrases in public, playing games, and enjoying Tlingit as a fun activity. And I also, you know, basic ordering phrases and like asking, you know, the person who is comfortable speaking Tlingit can ask the other person what they want. You know, all that good conversation. You know, can I get you something? What do you want? Do you want it with milk? Whatever. Um, so engage the public in seeing Tlingit as fun. I like the idea of a specific time in particular, you know, to just get people used to it. I was thinking what I would do is I would sacrifice and actually sit in a coffee shop on a regular basis. Order coffee and try and get people to play cards with me. And you know, if they won, I would buy them a cup of coffee.
Wow.
Nothing
Hey.
fancy, just drip coffee. No, I'm kidding. That's what they want, yeah. So the language it would target is ordering food, asking what people want, everyday conversation. And then for the Astek Nagu, there's basic numbers, which are a great place. A lot of people like to start a language with learning the numbers. And then there, all of these expressions here are really just fun expressions to use and easy to incorporate. Do, Ishan, I mean, no reason everybody in Juneau can't learn that or wouldn't want to.
Right.
And I status how this increase the value perceived or otherwise. The more it's heard in public, awareness is raised and social acceptance and pride. And I feel its uniqueness will be touted as one more special thing about Tlingit Ani, because I think that people who live here, anybody who lives here, Lake Ka, otherwise, they choose to live here. It's not a place you get to by accident. So it's one more thing to be proud of and to say, oh, this is what we say here. And I think it could get to be a thing, just like in Hawaii.
Oh,
You know, critical awareness, what potential barriers, and I think people may be shy to try, but if the participating businesses are willing to learn and share by showing their own efforts, you know, because I imagine for the baristas, they, you know, I say gunoshish and they go, how ah, or, you know, they're not really sure what to say. So, I mean, it's going to be learning for everybody, but if we can get, especially the businesses that are like Tlingit and Haida and Copa, to take it seriously, which I think they will and appreciate it, I think their enthusiasm will be communicated to the customers. How will I know if plan is achieved? I will see people playing games. And I will talk to the shop owners and managers and see if they need more cards. I'll talk to Rico Whirl and see if he would be willing to, you know, sell his cards at those stores and or donate a couple of sets for people to just check out for use while they're in the coffee shop. And then, yes, the review, how will I know it's working or not, is me having to go to the coffee shops regularly to drink. But I'm willing to do it for sure.
You're gonna sacrifice.
I am. So that's my plan.
Okay. Okay. Coffee dot. Anybody else have a coffee? Mind meld.
My idea.
No, she stole mine.
Okay,
Great minds.
for my project, I was actually going to do Spike's Cafe, which is funny that you brought that up. I was actually just going to make it Spike's, like just that area, or actually not even that area, just like ordering your coffee. And Spike's Cafe is like a popular spot on campus. Like a lot of people go there to get coffee, and like when I usually get the coffee, I'll admit it's like at least 4 days out of the week. So, and when I get my coffee, they're like, I get the same thing every day, and they're like, say, you're getting the same thing. So it's like, it wouldn't be too hard to just, you know, change out the simple, like phrases that are like greeting phrases, like kleswasa and just saying yake, like that's pretty simple. I remember when I came here and I liked to visit in like 2015, my dad, he would say wasi'iati to all the cashiers. And at least all the cashiers would be able to say kleswasa, which is pretty simple. So I don't think it'd be too hard to change that. Um, and then I plan on making, I was thinking about making the menu also to include the Tlingit language, which wouldn't be too hard because it's like Tlingit doesn't have a word for like macchiato. So you'd be able to replace like white. Okay. Yeah, that's true. But you'd be able to replace the words like white mocha, like light mocha. Not too hard to do. And then yeah, I was just hoping to make the greeting just because whenever I get coffee, they're like, "How's your day?" I'm like, "My day's fine." And that's all we say really. So it's just like really simple. And then the overall goal is to like make a spot on campus where we can actually practice the language. Ordering coffee would be pretty simple, and people do it every day. Well, I mean, I do it every day, but I know I see people getting their coffee like frequently. And then it's going to replace the exchange between the person working and the customer. And the planning structure. So this will promote the learning of Tlingit language with daily use. Again, a majority of the people come to Spikes like every day and they order the same thing or they get breakfast because I know they have breakfast sandwiches there. So it's not that hard to, put the language there with, repetitive phrases. Implementing the Tlingit language to Spike's Cafe would provide the ability to use simple phrases every day while on campus. Again, with each visit to Spike's Cafe, the students and faculty will have a chance to use Tlingit while ordering their coffee. And then for my corpus, the plan will target the simple greeting and departure language. So again, the examples are, how are you? I'm okay. The plan will increase the value of Tlingit as students will be using it every day, as well as bringing the language into the social space will create more meaning to everyday interaction. So my friend had brought this up, like when you say how are you to someone, you're not really thinking like too much like, oh yeah, I'm fine, but you might not actually be fine. So it's like just creating a little bit more emotion to that. Critical awareness. The barriers to a project like this are implementing change on process. So obviously not everyone is okay with change and being a part of it. One way to make this easier would be to provide small cheat sheets. So like maybe cheat sheets of like 5 phrases of like yake and wasi'i tuati, simple stuff like that. Then as time passes, the use of Tlingit at Spike's Cafe will become more normal. So when you first implement the project, it's going to be like, people are going to be embarrassed or maybe shy to say some stuff, but over time it will become normal. And then recognizing success, I will know the plan is successful by asking employees at Spike's Cafe, also by seeing students use Tlingit when I get my coffee. And then monitoring and reviewing success, checking in with staff at Spike's Cafe and students to assess how difficult the first set of phrases. So like maybe I was like super crazy about putting out these phrases and I put 10 phrases out and I was like, we're gonna learn these 10 phrases. And like if it's really difficult for students, I would maybe, take some out and short it down to 5. But if we had learned those 5 phrases initially, like really fast, I was going to bump it up some more.
Okay.
That's my idea.
Yay! Yeah, and with all of these and with the other ideas that you guys have, yeah, just think of it, start it, and then once you're getting comfortable, figure out how you can build on that. So yeah, so deeper conversations, additional games, bust out the cribbage. There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, you just keep going, but yeah, I really like these ideas where you start with something manageable, and then once you've got that, you build into it. You're also going to have to factor in, not that you have to get rid of, but if English is all around you, what are you going to do? And so part of that could be just promoting the thing and just saying, hey, we're speaking Tlingit here, and if you did that, that'd be really great. That's in just sort of that positive aspect of it. And then in some, if you're able to develop full immersion environments, like we had to think of this with the language nest and other cases. When we took students to Fred Meyer, we just gave them a card that they could give to people that says, I'm not being rude, but I'm just, because everybody wants to catch up, right? And next thing you know, somebody comes And that's something you're going to have to prepare yourself for because it'll probably be somebody you know really well. And it might hurt their feelings if you said, hey, we're just going to speak Tlingit right now because they might feel excluded. And so, but strategy is to sort of figure out how you're going to sort of do those things. And some of it is, yeah, these cheat sheets and these other things. And um, yeah. Okay. Anybody else got coffee? And we'll keep the coffee train going. Should we move to tea?
We'll give them some words for tea, right? Decaf.
If you're here, it's Chayu. If you're in Teslin, it's D. There you go.
Tea.
D.
Hey there. Um, I also had a coffee one.
Oh,
Yay!
no, one second.
I have quite the proposal to bring the sacred grounds on how to use direct linkation. So, yeah. I actually had a another idea that was kind of my I wrote about a coffee shop and like how you could do anything similar to like what a lot of people did. But I was going to share something else too that I think is not coffee related. Could also be good. But first, on coffee, the idea I had kind of similarly to other people's was doing some sort of discount for interactions in Tlingit and taking orders in Tlingit. And I think one thing I would add that I think could really make this cool and possible to do is if you were able to like quantify the language you would need to use to get a discount instead of just like kind of be free form. But it was like, okay, if you say introduce yourself in Tlingit, you can like say what you want and achtuasigu, like I want it, and gunchish, then like have some kind of structure that would allow you to like determine, when what would like result in a discount. Sorry, 1 second. My phone is malfunctioning. Sorry about that. But another idea that I did want to bring up here that I think could be interesting is that I was thinking about just personally as something I might try out is on Facebook, which have mine deactivated right now, but thinking about getting it going again to do this and start an online like journal and do like a short entry and can get every day that one, like I could practice the language every day, but then also if like I could invite people to the group that also were interested in learning the language, that they would then have media in Tlingit, because that's one thing I've noticed. Learning the language is it's hard to just like be exposed to media. Like everywhere I go it's all in English, and I think it would be great to have like some source of media in my daily life that was coming to me in Tlingit. And so that was something else I wanted to bring up as a possible other idea that could be interesting.
Yeah, and so there were several great ideas in there. I highly recommend just sort of journaling as far as the language goes is really great. And then also collaborating with your colleagues, because you're going to get to this point where you're going to just be finding where your blank spots are. Oh, I don't know how to say that thing or talk about that thing. And so, and if it's something that's kind of shared and maybe this becomes integrated into those others, it's a larger thing than sort of a domain, but it's in that sort of neighborhood, is just sort of sharing with the language community. Hey, I figured, I was wondering how to do this, and then we figured it out. And what you're going to find is as the language is taken to all these places, there's going to be all these things we realize we don't know how to talk about, either as a group or maybe the language just hasn't even been taken to that particular realm yet. And so there's some things we're going to have to figure out. So, okay. And then media as a whole, that should be its own realm, and it needs to be in these, again, bite-sized chunks, because it's wonderful, but if you say, okay, we're going to do media and Tlingit, and it's like, okay, but we got to start, and so, but thinking of what those bite-sized pieces could be, and so I'll share some ideas later. Okay. Audigan aka ashkeka deoji ide kakwaha.
Okay. Now that I'm craving coffee and don't have any, I was thinking more along the lines of children since I'm surrounded by them all the time at home and at school. So I work in a school and I've worked in SPED for a few years. And so I was thinking about taking Tlingit to SPED programs. So I really like the idea that we went through last time of going through the gold belt, um, different activities, the different subject matter. And I was thinking, even though like a lot of those, along with the binders that come from like See Alaska, a lot of them are kind of directed toward elementary, but I've worked with a lot of SPED kids, you know, in secondary, middle school and high school that are Tlingit, and it's like communication is similar to talking to like an elementary student in a lot of ways. So what I'm thinking is using directive phrases in that realm, like go get this or get a pencil or you know, good job, or like little things like that. And I did use that actually at the high school, in little small bits, you know, just saying yuck and just, and how you know, that it's working with a SPED student, especially because it takes quite a while for something to stick, you know, and so when you find them using it, it's really heartwarming. And so when they randomly will say something without being directed or without being prompted, and they're using those phrases, then you know that it's working and you've done your job. So that's what I'm thinking for that. I'm thinking about kids in SPED. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, goes cheese. Yeah, so again, like that's wonderful, and you might think of some smaller actual pieces, like starting with some specific activities, like you were talking about, and then building it one activity at a time, so that when you bring it in, you do have you've just got some plans for different sort of capabilities and different other sort of factors that might weigh in. The Hawaiian immersion schools don't take students with special needs. They don't. And so that's something that as we sort of factor out our programs that we're building and currently have, is just thinking about that. A wide variety of situations that we should be prepared for so that the language is available to anybody. I had somebody who was deaf who asked me to teach them Tlingit, and she came to a few classes, but I could not think of how to do that. And so, but there's a lot of different avenues that we can pursue, and sometimes it could be for particular uh, situations or learning abilities, and then it could be also just specific activities. Like I think this activity would work well with this particular group of students and with others who are dealing with SPED classrooms, and so it could be looking at it in terms of this activity is going to work with this audience. Um, okay. Anybody got other thoughts?
Sometimes students are placed in special ed because they're indigenous. Because they're Hawaiian, they're special ed.
Yeah.
So that's, not to take them, although I suspect that
What about American with Disabilities?
Yeah. Right.
So I think what you might be like referring to is I have had like special needs students who are classified as such, even if it's just because of indigenous, like sometimes it's socio-emotional, but I haven't had anybody like specifically just because they're indigenous, unless it's preschool, because they do have like native preschools. But then I'm just not quite sure exactly what you mean about like just indigenous, like that just for that just being a reason to be in special ed?
Yeah, well, and so that's part of a probably larger conversation, but that Helen Hoy was a scholar who came here, and some of her research showed that in Alaska, it's pretty commonly stated that Alaska Natives have the highest rates of fetal alcohol effects, and it is a problem, and it is something that is the rates are higher than they should be. But what Dr. Hoy was doing in her research is she was pointing out that the population that has the highest percentage of fetal alcohol effects was middle-aged white people, but they were consistently diagnosed as ADHD, and it was just called something different. And so sometimes you do have cases like that. Historically, when you look at IEPs and other things within Indigenous people, it does go higher. And this is something that sort of, those are these other sort of conversations, and they're relevant to what we're doing. But when we come back, when we look at something like the Americans with Disabilities Act and things, as we look at sort of creating things for these populations that do have needs and that might not be getting met in terms of a wide variety of things, there could be opportunities to bring the language to some of these populations and sort of build programs and access some different types of funding that's out there, and also to celebrate, because and you might find students might be struggling with concepts in English, but maybe they're going to take off in Tlingit, and it's going to be a different story. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
At Harborview School, there's a high percentage of kids with IEPs, so much so that there's a dedicated special education teacher that works with those 3 classrooms. So it's interesting to hear that in Hawaii, it's not inclusive. But listening to them with Kingistit, it's interesting that they're capturing what he's saying, and they're spelling with high tones and long vowel sounds. That just happened the other day, and I told them I hadn't seen kids do that before. But they were part of the group that was doing it. They understood that.
Awesome.
It's been my personal perception that some of the children that I've worked with that are Indigenous, though, there isn't really a problem with them learning. It's been mainly a problem with the instruction, because possibly the way that they value things and the way that they learn is a little different. And I think that because there's kind of like this one-way system in public schools to like teach, that you have to learn this, and this, and I think that that's kind of, I've had like a lot of beef with that. I've advocated a lot of for that a lot in the school, because there isn't just one way to learn. So I think that sometimes it's just like an intolerance of like the educator instead of the child. So I think that that's kind of like a just an obstacle to come over, especially like if I'm going to bring like the language into the school.
Yes, and what I was referring to was racism on the part of the administration and the testers, and just saying because this child doesn't respond in quite the way I want. Like one teacher said to me one time about a child from maybe New Mexico or something. His parents were Spanish. He doesn't speak in complete sentences. Neither
Who
did
does?
she. No, I know.
Right.
But it was just, she wasn't going to, so that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And I agree with that 100%, because that's very real. That's a very real issue everywhere.
Okay. Sheesh. Juan. Yeah, that's a great one. And let's keep in touch about ideas and projects. And I think similar activities, but then maybe you have activities that need to be shifted in some ways, and maybe not. So, okay. Doji ka kashke yi itraya Juan Klein. Itqaha hunaqu.
I'll go first. So I work in the elementary school with preschool to 5th grade. And I anticipate that will be my work assignment next year as well. So what I want to do is, a lot of times I'll tell my students, don't just speak Tlingit in this classroom. Speak it when you're out there, speak it at home, speak it in the hallway. But I don't have any, I haven't really found that is happening. And so what I want to do is take it to the school cafeteria and have specific things that we're practicing in class and have them do that in the cafeteria, with the ultimate goal for them to take it to their kitchen table at home. So I think the way I would want to do it, instead of just saying, okay, speak Tlingit in the cafeteria, is just have certain things, talk about, learn some phrases, learn some little conversations that they could say to each other, practice them in the classroom, pretend we're eating, have the cutlery, shatli, gusu shatli, and so on. Have these little conversations we can practice with in the classroom, then have them take it in the cafeteria. The problem might be that maybe it won't happen in the cafeteria because I'm not there. So then I have to make myself go in there. And a lot of times I'm teaching right during everybody's lunchtime, but I could sneak in there now and then and kind of check things out and see what's happening, talk to the staff that does work in the cafeteria during their meal times and see how it's going. So, so the idea of all the vocabulary, it would just, there's lots already. I have a lot of material already. So the main goal here would be, let's get it out there. So start in the classroom, move it to where they eat at school. They eat 2 meals at school, a lot of the kids, breakfast and lunch, and then take it home. See how that goes. So I had another idea that I just want to throw out there, because there's cafeteria, talking about food, I think that's very doable. The other one would be more of a long-term project. I've already gone to the city, but I wasn't able to talk to the administrator. I want to talk to them about how we can involve our students in doing some street names, putting in some ideas for street names. And that's how we got Kaidlady Park, which was probably over 10 years ago. It's Kaidlady Park because the students sent some Tlingit names to the city. And that was after many, many votes and much nominations and words all over the board. So they were throwing their ideas out there and we were voting and narrowing it down. And so we ended up sending maybe 3 or 4 names to the city. And so Kaidlady Park became Kaidlady Park, and named by our kids. And so why shouldn't we be doing that with street names as well? So those are my 2 ideas.
Yes, and the cafeteria is wonderful, but it's another thing where I think you might have to find the bite-sized morsel, because what do kids talk about in the cafeteria? Probably everything. So then you're just going to have to figure out, like, okay, for the first 5 minutes or the first 10 minutes, it's only Tlingit, and if you make it, then here's the neat thing that happens. And then also you start figuring out topics and work with the students, say, what do you guys want to know how to talk about in Tlingit? Because this is going to be the common problem of getting outside of the classroom, is like Tlingit has become a classroom language for a lot of us, which is really fascinating. And this is the goal of this, is to get it out of the classroom. So it's exactly what we're trying to do. But then to make sure that outside of the classroom, we start with these things and we figure out these bite-sized pieces, and we can add on to that and add on to that. And next thing you know, we can do 10 minutes, and we could do 15 minutes, and we could do, I don't know how long they lunch, but we could do the whole lunch. And if we do that for a week, then boom, some kind of thing happens. So you can.
Yeah, I was thinking we could make posters too, or the kids could make posters and we could have them in there. So if they run out of something to say, they can look at the poster and, oh yeah, I can say that. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Deji, I wonder if you might consider, before you start on this, going into the cafeteria and listening to the kids and writing down what they are saying. And use that first, because that's what they need to be able to say, and not necessarily pass me the fork.
Okay.
Sis,
Okay.
that's interesting. Sitting here running out of breath listening. Mine is similar to Satuk's. Instead of talking on the ride, mine was I started out talking to people that I knew that understood Tlingit, that was with on the senior bus. We just say simple phrases. I just happened to start talking to some of them, see who understood, how much they knew on the language. And we just started doing simple phrases. Pretty soon there was some adding on that wanted to know how to say a certain word, or just got interested in it and start trying to do the short phrases too. But anyway, that's what I started to do. And I, with the cards that I made on the first half of the class, with those cards, what I'd like to do is with my grandchildren play memory games and go fish and stuff like that, and do phrases. And to add on to that, I made up a game that I'm planning to do is I'll have some short poles with a magnet, a string and a magnet hanging on it, and nouns and words to make short phrases, and maybe add on if it gets to that. But anyway, that was my plan.
Yeah, so it sounded like there was probably a couple things in there. And so one is this sort of maybe it sounds like how to visit in Tlingit, how to have short conversations, which is a really neat idea. There was a little book I have which was, I can't remember, it had a funny name. I can't remember, it was kind of a fun name anyway. So it was like a Maori survival handbook or something like that. And so something like that for Tlingit. So it's just like, boom, here's things that people really like to say to each other. And it's going to be pretty surface level stuff, but how's your kids? How's your, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's some of that in beginning Tlingit, but just sort of a more targeted type of thing. And then as people are ready for more, we figure out what the next step is.
But talking on the bus to elders in Tlingit, that's so brilliant. Get those neurons going.
I didn't expect it to turn out the way it did. They seem to enjoy it, and we have a lot of fun on the van when we're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Sheesh. Echa. Echa. Juan Shane Echa.
Khataya Juan ya dikhat. My domain, I sent it to you in your in your email. I don't have it printed off. I could try to print it off and then come back.
No, I could pull it up. Just hold on a second.
If it's the same as yesterday, we could help you.
It is, and as it is, and I was gonna also, do the 1 through 12 strips and then send it too, but I was just too busy.
Relay.
Hey, she has a job and everything.
3. I don't know what I'm trying to prove. Okay, there it is. Okay, mine is Tlingit Domain Reclamation Project. Domain, what domain is a physical or social area where the language is used? I looked this stuff up. What domain are you reclaiming? The Wrangell Sentinel local newspaper. What is the overall goal? To request to put a comic strip in the newspaper every Thursday with a Tlingit word phrase explaining the action depicted to help acquire the native language. I will give credit to Ramiro Garcia. That's Alice Taft told me. TPR homework exercises. I hope it will help place-based language thrive in the Sleeping Giant, a name associated with Wrangell. Acquisition. How will this plan promote the learning of Tlingit? This plan will promote the learning of Tlingit by being a consistent part of the local newspaper seen every week. Use. How will this plan promote the use of Tlingit? I will be involved and it will be a topic for my Tlingit language students currently engaged in learning. Corpus. I looked that up. What kind of language will this plan target? Place-based Tlingit language stored in my computer. Status. How will this plan increase the value, perceived or otherwise, of Tlingit? It will be visible in the community's grasp for their perusal or otherwise, dependent on the hierarchy of English. Critical awareness. What are the potential barriers to this plan and how might they be mitigated? Critical barriers are cost, if any, and then using Ramiro Garcia's comic strips, big plagiarism. Possible convincing the editor publishers of the importance and worth of the Tlingit language. Possible mitigation, write for a mini grant to help with costs, ask if I can use Ramiro Garcia's comic strips, and I was going to put something in there like do my own comic strips. Appeal to the nobility of reviving a lost foundation of language and culture in Wrangell. Recognizing success. How will I know the plan is achieved? When it is received favorably by the Wrangell Sentinel and I see it every week in the newspaper, I'll learn the contents and my students see, learn, and use the phrases to be portrayed. Monitoring, review. How will I know the plan is working or not? I will make the Tlingit language comic strip proposal to the Wrangell Sentinel and the Capital Weekly. The plan is unfailing.
Confidence.
I wish I could speak that in Tlingit.
Oh, yeah, well. There's a pretty fun one. I'll show it to you. Hold on a second. Who's next? Get ready, and I'll show you guys this real quick, though.
I was thinking in the same light of Hayatki, and there's been interesting dynamics going on in the school because we have 3 speakers, and then we have so many people who are speaking. It's not a reclamation. They're claiming the staff room. So sometimes the non-native teachers and staff walk in, and all of it's in Tlingit. Wow. And they don't stop either. Wow. So it's interesting because it's not a reclamation. I thought, no, they're claiming this domain. So I was thinking in terms of similar things in the school, and I worked with a couple of very highly motivated teachers. These are non-TCLL, they're the regular classroom. One of the teachers, I think she speaks about 7 languages. And so she wants to know, and she's picking it up pretty quick. So I've been bringing her resources. And then there's another teacher who's very engaged too. So I've been bringing them. Thankfully, the PDF of Tlingit Qainaqsa is there online. So I used the printer at school and I printed them both. And their response was unanimous. First I got one that said, "What a gift." And then the other one said, "What a great gift." So in working with these teachers, I'm looking at resources like the beginning Tlingit, the weather cards that Lance has provided. And then looking at place names in the Juneau area as the kids go out on, like Sea Week is coming up.
Mm.
So I printed the beach creatures with the Tlingit Sai. And years ago when we did this in Gastineau, when we had Angie Linda and Mary Folletti, everything we did on the beach was in Tlingit. Unfortunately, the district didn't value it, so it ended. And so there was no more funding for it.
Mm.
But then you could see that there's great potential in every classroom because it was Head Start and it was K through 5 as well. So in thinking of how to do this with a couple of classrooms, I thought that by supporting the teachers and doing instruction with kids with different projects throughout the year, depending on what the teacher is doing, because this is what I did with Shgan. I'd look at what she was doing and then I would partner with her, and we were just collaborating on trying to make things happen. And it was interesting because we had no grant, but she got some amazing accolades. She said it was her best year teaching ever, and it was just her and Mary Folletti and I. And then we were bringing in other resources, and I thought, well, there's ways we can do things without necessarily having grants. Just do it and work with teachers. So the teachers that I've been working with that are very interested, I was thinking of things like counting during math and using the weather cards during the calendar because they observe the weather, and using common phrases like going to recess. One of the things that I've done over time is I wouldn't necessarily give instruction, like with kindergartners. They always have to get papers, and I just say, "Isai kashachit." And I'd never told them anything, I just pointed to it. One day one of them said, "I know what you're saying." I said, "Well, what is it?" They told me. They said, "You write your name." But I wasn't giving language instruction, it was just context. So I thought, well, there's things that we can do that engage them and they respond because they like to be successful. And I thought the language to target would be some of the things are the names of the animals around here. So with the kindergarten teacher, she wanted to know, the kids were doing stuff on mammals. There was one obstacle, there's no badgers in Alaska. So I told her that, I said, they don't inhabit this far north, they're not up here. But with the rest of them, I could pull up the names. So those are things that I've done with just grabbing pictures and mirroring it on the, on the screen. So colors, counting, the sea creatures on the beach, the types of salmon, they go to DIPAC. Things about how we eat food, what we do with it. And then verbs for some of the everyday activities like writing in the classroom. And a lot of students come with many languages. I think it's the most diverse population in Juneau. There's even Eastern European, Eastern Russian. There's the two dialects of Tagalog and Visayan. There's Haida. So they always want to add one more thing, and so I've been coming in and adding that with them with things that they're doing. And one of the interesting responses was when one of the teachers wanted to learn about how are you feeling, and I said, well, there's wasayati, and it was right there in Tlingit Qainaqsa. And then I said, but if you're asking how they're feeling inside themselves emotionally, then there's wasayatuati. And the teacher really liked it because he checks in the morning with his kids, and he said, how are you feeling? And I said, then this is the one you're going to want to use because the other one can be used more physically. So there's things that I've looked at in how to make it happen, and one of the barriers is just the sounds. Unfortunately, about 8 or 10 years ago, one of the programs under SHI grant printed all these cards, you know, laminated, and it's the alphabet. It's the 50, or I'm not sure how many.
61.
It's a whole bunch. Anyway, I thought, well, that's one thing that definitely is a barrier, but talking to them about the blend, the high tone, the voiceless L, I would tell them just what Huay Nuk said. He said, put your tongue where you would for an L and just blow. And it works because then they have a strategy. And so then just like in the beginning, Tlingit, using English words like sob, you know, the car. The kids might not know it, but the teachers might. And to get the vowel sounds. I thought that would be one way of helping them. And then just practicing the sounds with words that are more doable, because I work with the art teacher too, and so we'd work with colors and drawing. And there was a feather series that SHI did, and I said, oh, this is easy, because I don't want to give them things that right off the bat they'd struggle with. And I said, this one's easy, it's ow. So doing things like that are strategies that I would use. And sometimes they'll ask me questions. That's another barrier. And it was an important thing that I learned early on. But then I'd say that we have 3 elders in the building right now. So I'm going to go ask them. So I'm going to find somebody who can help us figure out what this is that you're asking. So when teachers want to know more and students want to know more, then that would be an indicator, that positive response, that this is something that they want. And quite a few years ago, when there was the language being taught in every classroom at Gastineau, when the district decided not to continue it, the students and families wrote letters in support. And it was interesting because some of the most vocal people were non-native students and families. And one of the most ones that I remembered, I never forgot it, because this little 3rd grade guy, he was so intelligent, and he was part of the autism spectrum. And his words were so articulate, though. He said, it's only right. The schools were the places that took the language away. And he said, and it's only right that it be taught here. I thought, that little 3rd grader, he just nailed it. And I think we saved what he wrote, and I don't know where it is right now, but I thought he was so introspective about this. And I thought, yeah, we can find ways to integrate it in a meaningful way by collaborating with teachers and seeing what they're doing, and then adding things that are doable, like just the sea creatures. Those would then just be nouns. And so that's coming up in the next week. Next low tides, I was telling them, I said, wow, at Gastineau, we only did it in Tlingit, every classroom in the building. There was no English. And so that would then be a reclamation if they did that in that building, because it happened there. And it was because of Ikikia. It was Angie Lunda who drove it.
Okay.
And so we have hope.
Jeez. Okay. Sheet cook. Yide cook waha. Yide cook aka. Anya nachtla.
So the domain that I am reclaiming is it's sort of hard to explain. I mean, I guess I'd say it's the Nakahiti dance group and also the Sheet Kakwan dancers, of which I lead both of those groups. But I guess just in the larger scheme, I'd say kind of just like the Tlingit dance community in Sheetka. And the overall goal is, I guess, sort of to emphasize to my dancers that the importance of our language in preserving our culture, because I feel like I hit pretty hard the importance of singing our songs correctly and doing our dances traditionally. And they're very well aware of that. And we go through the songs and, you know, make sure that everything is pronounced correctly, but we don't really learn, you know, the language behind the songs. And I do not feel qualified by any stretch of the imagination to do that. But what I would like to do, though, is to just incorporate more Tlingit into our dance practices, because it occurred to me when we had practice last night that there are so many things that I say in English that could be said in Tlingit. And even though I know you don't really like when people use the word fluent because it seems like a divider, that I think I see what you're talking about, because I allow that to keep me from using the language I do know. And there are a lot of phrases that I do know that I know this younger generation hasn't had the benefit of learning through what used to be our cultural education program, and now kind of focuses more on place-based education, and they do less explicit teaching of language, songs, dance, and culture. And so they do kind of more of like things like history and, you know, things like subsistence cycles and things like that. And so I think it will help just expose the kids and the adults who, you know, have already been working on at least how the sounds are made when we do the songs. It will expose them to more Tlingit and actual Tlingit phrases than just, you know, repeating the words to songs. And obviously it will promote more use of Tlingit, because they're going to be hearing me using it and actually learning what the phrases mean when I ask them to be quiet, and when I ask them to line up, and when I ask them to sing louder, and all these things that I've been saying in English that I know how to say in Tlingit and just haven't done because they don't know it. And it's sort of crossing, for me, crossing over this notion that I haven't been using it because they don't know it. And it's almost like it just didn't click with me that I could be teaching it to them. And so I guess like it will be the language that this plan targets. A lot of it would be classroom type language, because it's a lot of commands, but a lot of commands that they're not exposed to at this time through what used to be the cultural education program or even practice. And I feel that it will increase the value of Tlingit, because they'll just see that it's something that can be used more in everyday situations, and especially that there are more situations in which we simply haven't been using it that we could. Some barriers to the plan is really, I think, mostly my own barriers. I don't think that anyone in my dance groups would put up any barriers themselves. The two biggest ones would be, you know, A, just figuring out how to say more of the things that I'd want to be able to say that I say frequently, and B, just making myself remember to use the language more when I'm able to. How will I know if the plan is achieved? I guess I'll just know when I can see that my dancers know more Tlingit, or at least understand more that I'm using. And I'll know if it's working or not if they come out of the dance season knowing more Tlingit phrases than they did when we went in, and can recognize it when used.
Yeah, for both of the last two, there's a couple things I want us to think about. Is one, yes, like you have the ability and the authority to go forward and to teach people and to use the language. and you actually have to, because there's not a lot of people out there who can and who will. And so as we sort of, there'll be times where you'll teach something and you'll go back and look at it and be like, oops, I'll have to fix that thing. And we're all just going to have to be okay with that. That sometimes we're just going to have to keep fixing things as we go along. The other thing is, whenever we're talking about sort of reclaiming things like a school or a dance group, we're going to have to do those things in chunks. And sometimes I think you're going to have to be strategic about it. So it's kind of like this. People are like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just like fixing this little thing over here. But you're actually converting the whole thing. But you got to sort of ease into some of those things. And I think for a dance group and for a school, those are things we're going to have to say, oh, we're going to learn how to introduce all of these songs in Tlingit, and then we're going to train people to do that. And those are going to be the ones who stand up to talk to the people. And then figure out also what the rewards are, what's in it for people, because we're going to ask people to do an awful lot of work. But then once they can see, and we sort of put those visible rewards up there, because the emotional ones come once you really start to get it, right? Once you really start to be able to use the language, I think all those other things, it pays for itself, but we have to show people, I think, initially. Okay. Cheesh.
So can you hear me?
Ah.
Okay. So the domain that I chose was, or is, so basically, like in the mornings, there's a lot of mornings when I'll be sitting at the kitchen table and my dad sits down, and that's a time when we have to like talk and catch up with each other, and we are both learning the language and everything. And so we have tried to make that time like time where we do use the language, but a lot of it that we've tried in the past has been like we'll go through like Tlingit Qainachsa and like go through those and like kind of sometimes we'll like quiz each other, or sometimes we'll like try to make conversation from those like pre-written sentences, I guess. And what I want to do with this like project is like maybe form a list of like my own phrases, and like those might be some that like I find in books like that, but things that I like know are helpful to me, so I'm not always like sifting through like a particular book that like has something that like is like perfect or whatever. And I want to be able to, I guess, yeah, like form my own list so that it's more personal to me, and that will like contain like all the things that I want to be able to say. And yeah, I guess it's way more messy in my head than it should be, but so yeah, that's part of it. And so like the language that I want to like incorporate is like things about food, because like it's usually like at breakfast time, I guess. So like making like different kinds of food, making, I don't know, I have oatmeal a lot, making oatmeal, make like boiling water, things like that, those kinds of verbs, and those kinds of like, and the nouns associated with those. One barrier that I like wrote about on my paper is like when I think of this, I think that there's a lot of like different branches of like conversation that could like occur. Like, oh, like what are you doing? What are you gonna do today? Like, what are your plans? What are you doing at school? What are you eating? Like, there's all these branches, and I think a barrier is that like getting too caught up in like the multitude of different options that we could go in. And so my idea to like combat that is just like in this domain, like focusing on like one at a time, I guess, like one branch at a time, like by taking a few weeks or something and trying to like get down some of the phrases about eating and drinking and whatever, and then moving on to maybe those things about like what are you doing at school today, and kind of like hopefully, I mean, build to like where we can have like a full conversation about all of those things, but of course like starting and working on those things in chunks. So yeah, that's my presentation plan. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. I like what Chalk said earlier is if you weren't speaking Tlingit, what would it be like? And then that gives you the sort of framework. And so the the challenge, I think I really like what Pilo Wilson says. He says language revitalization is two things. It's protecting the speakers you have while making new ones, and making your language the language of power and use. And for me, use is the key thing here. So reclaiming domains can start with learning the language somewhere else and in a different context, but it has to transition to use. And in order to transition to use, unfortunately, it has to become a little bit scripted at first. We have to learn how to talk about what do we want to eat today, right? And we'll just start with that. And then once we start figuring that out, then okay, we've got that down. Now let's do the next thing. And so that maybe your breakfast conversations have to follow a certain sort of theme until you can get off the book. Because one of our goals now is to get off the book. And as soon as you said oatmeal, I thought of a little piece of audio that I listened to the other day, just going through different things. And from Kasech, she taught us Wudliuk is the cat is purring. It's actually boiling. So, you know, the cat's not boiling, it's purring. Anyways, yeah, so strategizing, because if it's the learning part is great, but then the use, transitioning to use is always a challenge. But then I think figuring out these building block approaches to just having these conversations and then picking these certain themes and just trying it out. And then after you're done saying, oh, okay, we got to figure out how to say, this thing or how to talk about that thing. So, okay. Okay, we got 25 minutes. Who's left?
Hiya.
Okay.
Well, my domain is our dance studio's summer intensives, and I want to share some words that we can use in the general area of theater and try to get our teachers and students to use them in their classes. This will promote the learning of Tlingit, and it will give everybody something that they really enjoy saying. And to try to explain how that can work, I tried to think of a really simple beginning that people would like. So, in any theater performance, whether it's dance or singing or acting, any live performance, playing instruments, there are two things that they always say at the beginning and put in their programs. One is silence your cell phones, and the other is no flash photography. So here is my first attempt at saying that in Tlingit in a way that people will have fun with. Galtu kachist ya. And after you say that, don't forget to say Tech ka yahayi skinaye. Now, anybody who gets up in front of an audience and says that in English can say it in Tlingit either before or after the English, and people will hear it again and again, and they'll start to remember it. Now, I don't want to say that I know how to say those things. This is just my first try, and if more knowledgeable speakers can correct that and give me something I can actually give to the people at the studio, that would be great. And I'd also like to ask if, let's see, I don't remember whether it was Yade Cook Ka or Anyach Fa, who said that she was trying to find things that were part of the same overall what's the word for that? For part of the same overall corpus, but narrowing it down to a different part of it. So if I can include line up, be quiet, and smile, those are things that our teachers could tell our students. And if you can make progress with that project, then I bet other people will be interested in it too, because I know I will. Even though the dance groups that I'm connected with are not Native Alaskan dance groups, these are the things that we say to our dance students too, and they should learn them in Tlingit too. Now, another project that is part of what I want to do is that ever since I can remember, there have been Native Alaskan performance events. Native and non-Native people want to have this happen, and we've had very good examples of that here in Juneau and everywhere in the state. So I thought, what words can I find for a theater? I found some and I couldn't find some. Wasa dua sa backdrop, Tlingit, Hainach. How about in?
Okay.
Wasa dua sa aisle, A-I-S-L-E, Tlingit, Hainach. Zait. Okay. How about Wasa dua sa theater, Tlingit, Hainach? Well, we talked about this in our Zoom group, and my favorite was something that I think Ashke and Deoji suggested, that for generations in Huna, their theater was called by the people a show hall. And I thought, this is Tlingit. We can save this if the people want to save it, instead of trying to make up something for it. But if you wanted to try to find a different word to use as well, or for a different kind of show hall, maybe you could say Yeha hit. Yeha means imagination. It can also mean counterfeit or fake. But it's really up to the people who own the language to decide these things, and we can help by giving more choices. Now here's another great Tlingit word that I found in the dictionary that we can use all the time when we're in the theater. It is Kuli Shan. Kulit Shan. It's kind of hard for me to pronounce, but if you practice it enough, it'll roll right off your tongue. And if somebody asks you, what do you think of this performance? You can just tell them, Kuli Shan, and that'll mean interesting to watch. Now, Wasa dua sa stage, Tlingit hang nach. Well, we talked about this on Zoom too. And the only thing I could think of was a Tlingit word for platform, which is kayash. But if somebody said that to a native speaker, they would think of the platform on the outside of a clan house, or maybe some of the platforms that would be inside a big clan house. And they might not immediately think of a stage in a theater. So there must be a word that can go with kayash that would narrow it down to stage, and I just couldn't think of one.
Fancy. Didn't we suggest fancy?
Yeah, conspicuous or
Conspicuous,
attractive.
yeah. Attention attracting is one of the.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that was the suggestion, and we talked about it, so I'd like to just go with that and say kayash kashteke for a stage in a theater. Now, this will really make it possible for everyone who's doing a performance to include Tlingit in their communication with their audience. And I think one way we'll know that it's succeeded will be if you go to a performance and the person who's introducing the show says, Galtu Chachis Ja. Sheesh.
That's wonderful. Okay, I got some thoughts. And I'll work on this and I'll share it a little bit later. And we could talk it through as a gang. But here's the things that I would think of, and this is exciting. And Kachanes, you can go next. Well, let me just share a couple of thoughts here. One is this is how we should be doing it, I think, is we just sort of talk it over, come up with some ideas, keep messing around with those ideas, and then we'll take them to some speakers and see what they think about them. But then the first thing I want to say is to reclaim a domain it's a spectrum, right? So sometimes we're just trying to bring the language into a particular space. That's great. We want teachers who don't know Tlingit to start using some Tlingit. We want the studios and the theaters to start using some Tlingit. That is the path we want to be on. But then we also might have certain spaces we say, we want this to become a Tlingit speaking space. And so there's different ways to look at this, but just to get it there, to achieve some form of multilingualism or bilingualism, and then to have this sort of Tlingit space. And so these are things that we're going to have to sort of, as we keep going down these endeavors, figure out where are we at on the spectrum. I want us to be able to have breakfast entirely in Tlingit. So your goal there is like total Tlingit. I want us to have this as part of what we do. And that's important. That's normalization. That means when you go places in Tlingit country, you hear the Tlingit language, and that just becomes common. So this would be a command, and this would be to silence something. And so that would be, Qashtukahis is a nice way to say cell phone. Yen Qashitsan is quiet. And that would be the same thing for like telling someone to make that person be quiet. And you can also quiet yourself, and this is a nicer way than shikkat. Right? For no photography, this one would be really interesting. I would probably just recommend having and so these are prohibitive and command forms of verbs. So, don't make a picture, don't make an image. Don't make a video. So that, and these are, my kids are at JDT, so they were just at the spring showcase, so I got to see the speeches a few times. I got to fix that one. I'd probably just say, don't light up a light. Right? And that would be like the flash. These ones, I would suggest we just put shkashnik in front of a bunch of things. Because no matter what, a story is kind of central to it, and then maybe not. There's like a musical performances or whatever. But I like kayash, that's great. Shkashnik kayash. We could try that out for stage. Shkashnik dakahiti for a theater. Shkashnik chin for a backdrop. And so I'll try and remember the other thing. Oh, aisle. I know aisle, I would probably have kaya paji. The road, the path in between the chairs. Right? And so this is how, and we did a bunch of this stuff, like this thing, and then this type of word, and then this type of word. And this is when you start learning how to name things, it gets really fun because you'll just try stuff out, and then it'll start to make sense. Ok is in between, and then the Tlingit logic will present itself the more you do these exercises. So, hey, goodness, geez, that was awesome.
Goodness, geez. These are all great phrases. The kudsi.
Consider using something about play instead of shkashni, because it's everybody's playing.
Yeah, okay.
Whether they're dancing or singing or acting, or and it's so strange that the English is this word play. It's a play. We're going to go to a play. What?
It could be yesha. Yesha is imitation or counterfeit. The difficulty with playing is in Tlingit, it's either kids like activities, or there's a pattern to say play, not like a play like I'm going to the theater to watch the play, but for like to play games or to play whatever. And I'll show you the pattern real quick, and we'll turn it over to Tachanese. So the pattern, and so this is something, you guys are at this point where you can start looking at these things and analyzing what the pattern is so you could figure out how to apply it to other things. And it's going to be a little messy at first, but that's why we did all this under the hood grammar work, right? So kusuk is to play quietly by yourself, right? So this is go play. Go play so you're not disturbing, Then to play active games, this presents pattern number 1, where you have ush, and then you have usually ka and a D plus L classifier, gle, and then something that talks about the activity. So in this case, yet is a child. So this is sort of saying, be a child. Play at being a child.
So that's good.
Yeah, so that one's good, right? But that one, most speakers are going to associate with running around and sort of playing a game. And that could work. It could work. So you could have, but ashkashet dakahiti, speakers are going to think like there's some sort of playground in there. That's what they're going to think. And then we get to this one, like play with the ball, play with the bat, play with boats, play with marbles. All of these have ush, a D plus L classifier, although it's not showing you them because it's just showing you like these, it's not showing you the theme. That's what the theme is. Ka. Usually the Irialis is in there because I think it's saying we're comparing this to something. I think that's how it's working. And then ish, then it's usually at the end. And I don't exactly know why that part's there, it just is. Ish is to bat at something. to hit a baseball would be perfect. Chuch is to go. Sikhuch is to drive. That's not going by. You could go by car, but sikhuch is to drive, right? That's why the classifier changes to S. Tog is to flick at something, I think. Kits is to rock back and forth. Qeq is to swing. Touch is to slap, but in a lot of cases it's to swim, like a person swims. So yeah, let me, and then qeq is to creek. So, but that shows you the pattern. A lot of them have a CH at the end as well, and that's why you get ja as opposed to ah. It's just showing you the habitual sort of thing. So that's what's under the hood of all of that stuff. I will mess around and see if any of the speakers that I work with have another idea for stage and theater and stuff, and we'll see what they come back with. Okay, Tachanes, and then anybody else who didn't go yet, I want to make sure everybody has a chance.
In order to reclaim Tlingit domain in my area, anyone who comes to visit where we live is going to get a little bit of an education about where they are at, so they have a sense of place, and they'll incorporate, their diet will have things from the Tlingit menu. That's just the way it's going to be, and the more that you can understand it, the easier it is to share that information with other people. And in order to wrap your head around some of the concepts, we need to have an understanding of the language. And so I've made a little slideshow that shows an example that I'd like to share with you.
Hey, and sheesh.
But how do I do this? Sure.
Yeah.
I've done this before, desktop.
Yep. Or you could share the actual program like PowerPoint or Keynote, whatever it is.
That's what I have as a PowerPoint.
Okay, so when you click the share button, it should present you with a window with some options, and then you can click on, yeah. Oh, now you can select the PowerPoint down at the bottom. Yeah, well.
Can you see that now?
Yay.
Okay, I got to make it a slideshow here. Here we go. Chari hatnayu kleshayach yakwakai.
Equity.
Leitka huye hayati idat. He chu kua klingik ha si. Yini yawu hi yidach ayu yugash yuslingish chutle kliyi yunaslich. Ayadak za zirgunei dechach ya shushle. Deruke duchayi kutan khali de chach yawachach yupa.
Okay.
Sheesh.
Yeah, well. Chatsi ochtel the tani, Yakecha.
Alice.
Oh, eat koha. Yake.
My domain is shoe shopping IRL. The overall goal is to be able to shop in Juneau and Tlingit.
Okay.
Acquisition and use, how will it be promoted? Shawat Asichan. The corpus will be shoe shopping, negotiating color, size, fit, greetings, departures, and I have some utterances from a pilot study I did on field work at Shoefly.
Okay.
Such a
With
hard one.
Marie Olson, I know. Okay, so here's what I heard. Welcome to Shoefly, welcome back. I'm just looking, we're just looking. It's way up in that corner. You can tell me what size it is. Would you like to try it on? Can I try this on? What about this one? Need a hand? It's small. Can I help you? Can you help me? Do you have this in a size 10? They had more shoes back there. You have to try these on. No. These are so, that was Marie. These are so cute. Look at these. I love these. Too small, too big. I can grab a 39. I'll take them. See ya. How will this plan increase the value, perceived or otherwise, of Tlingit? Tlingit will be spoken and heard in a practical setting. Non-Tlingit speakers will appreciate that the language has practical value. Potential barriers and mitigation. Shoppers don't know what to say in Tlingit. Mitigation, shoppers will meet and practice shoe shopping phrases. The store might not want to try Tlingit shoe shopping. We'll convince them. Good publicity, more shoppers, etc. Store personnel don't know what to say in Tlingit. We'll teach with a system like Tlingit speed dating. Just a few phrases for the first shopping event. The store may get cold feet. We'll first have a dry run during a slow shopping time. If that works, we'll alert the media, good PR for Shoefly, and visit again. We might be too busy, lazy to take action. Wake up and get going. Buy more shoes. Give your old ones to someone else. Recognizing success. We'll measure success by 1, at least 2 shoppers learn to use Tlingit shoe shopping phrases and do so. Shoefly staff is amenable to us shopping in Tlingit. At least 1 Shoefly staffer learns to understand some Tlingit shopping phrases and respond with at least 2 phrases.
Yeah.
Or if Tlingit shoppers notice at least 3 tourists paying attention to hearing Tlingit. How will we know if this plan is working or not? When if Tlingit shoppers and Shoefly staff want to continue adding more language to our shopping experiences. 2, if there are positive responses to media coverage of Tlingit shoe shopping at Shoefly. Zoom, Huni, Yidishi.
Ish nai u, guk day.
There are some non-Shawat people who will.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, we have one in this class.
Go away tisach to us a
Yeah, we have some spectacular shoes.
Okay. Huch aya oh hitatina khatiti. Oh, tisatina khatiti ewa yaktishi. Does anybody else want to share? I know we're out of time. Did we get to everybody? More or less? Yes? No? Yaktushi?
Oh, Yaktushi.
Matsuka?
I could be fast. I actually found this project kind of hard because it's so difficult to narrow it down, as you said, to bite size. And, I think in every class you're like, speak it everywhere, 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 sing it all the time. And so to really narrow it down to, I guess, master or improve the ability in one environment. So the one that I've been really focusing on is the mornings with my children. So those are more of the commands. So time to get up, put your shoes on, eat your breakfast, pack your lunch, things like that. That would help me with the directives, but that really start to make an impact on them, and using them not just at home. It helps me use it in other various activities that I do with them, including dance practice and whatnot, so that it helps them, it tunes their ear to the language. um, Otherwise, I'm with Une sing it everywhere, all the time, every day. Which way?
Yeah, and our goal is always total and complete revolution and success. We have to have chunks that we can see, and that gives us this building block. Or else we'll say, I want to do this, all this stuff in Tlingit, and yes, but then the idea of this project is to find that thing that you can gradually take over. And then you're like, okay, that's working. What's the next thing? Okay, that's working. What's the next thing? So, okay, I think we haven't heard from Daisy, but I don't know if you guys have anything. We're getting treats in class.
This is being, yes, you are an intermediate speaker.
Oh yes, we're being crowned as official intermediate Tlingit speakers.
And we can take advanced, even if we're hesitant, right?
Yep, you guys are ready for advanced Tlingit. I highly suggest you don't take time off. I know a couple people have suggested that to me. You will sit here, you'll be a year and a half from now wondering why you can't say a bunch of stuff that you used to know. Kahwasayi Tlakudzi, Chish, Yigoayachwan. I'll be in touch with everybody, and we'll keep these projects going.
Hey, very nice.
Okay, good job.
Cheese
Coffee.
Go shoe shopping.
Yeah, well. The cutway teeth.
Tell your wife.
Okay, you guys are the best.
Awesome.
Awesome is my uncle used to say.